Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to CEC Gurukul Lectures. In this continuation with the series of lecture in kinship studies, the topic of my lecture today is gender and kinship. The whole idea today is to look into the way in which gender as a category has been introduced into kinship studies and the way in which it has kind of helped us to reimagine kinship. Just to kind of recap in the previous lectures on reimagining family, recasting kinship, I have talked about the role of reproduction technology in changing the meaning in which we look at kinship. We have a new way of looking at maternity, matrilineal system, as well as the whole idea of reproduction. So how did we kind of arrive at it? So in order to understand the significance of gender in terms of kind of being a relevant category to understand kinship relation, it was not always like that, and therefore two very pertinent important questions that arises is that is gender a relevant concept, or how were traditional classical anthropologists studying the society without kind of giving an analytical perspective of what women were doing in sociology and anthropology. So when we kind of traverse through the history of anthropology, it kind of reflects that there was a kind of absence of any perspective which were looking into the question of women from a feminist perspective. It does not mean that there were no feminist anthropologists. If we look into 1940s and 50s, there were many anthropologists like Ruth Benedict, Margaret Mead, and many others who were kind of giving in their contribution to the discipline of sociology, but it was again kind of limited with the discourses which were kind of available in mainstream anthropology. And therefore, in today's lecture, I will begin by looking into what was the scenario, how were women perceived, or were women present in the field when anthropology and kinship studies became relevant as important areas of study. Then we kind of move towards and see how they were kind of changed in the documentation and by becoming in of a large number of feminist anthropologists themselves. And this happened towards 1970s, 80s. A number of anthropologists kind of restructured the way in which kinship relations were being imagined or were being studied. And this is also was in kind of going on along with different things which were happening at the same point of time. One was the change within the discipline of anthropology in terms of kinship studies. And to go back, when we started off with the cultural approach, I have already discussed that David Schneider brought about a change in the perspective of studying kinship relation, and he kind of critiqued the biological or the descent approach and the alliance approach and suggested that we need to understand kinship as a cultural system. We need to understand kinship as symbol and as in terms of meanings attached to it. So this kind of a discourse in the field of anthropology, from a kind of moving from generalization, from universalization to cultural specificity, there was also kind of a point which kind of prompted lots of feminist anthropology to restart studying areas which had been earlier done and bring out a perspective or a cultural perspective of kinship relation. The other event that was at the same time parallel going around in the 1780s was the emergence of second wave feminist movement in the West, which also tried to question the way in which the entire idea of women's role, women's status in society was kind of theorized in academics, and this kind of also led to the whole understanding of how we look into the concept of gender and sex, and whether gender was a biological construct or it was a kind of a cultural construct in terms of who is a male, who is a female, would depend on what kind of meaning the society was attaching to the body. So these changes were all kind of put together led to the emergence of a new discipline, or rather a subfield in anthropology titled as feminist anthropology. And we will look into some of the classical works, right from the pre-feminist anthropology to some of the very significant contribution which has kind of helped us reimagine or recast kinship relations in the new light. So let us kind of start with the classical anthropological, what was the approach of anthropologists when it comes to the study of women or gender. So we see that the question of gender basically was kind of absent in classical anthropologists, and it can be argued the reason why it was absent in the classical anthropologist was that most of the time it was the study of men by men themselves. So there was also absence of the feminists themselves, of women anthropologists themselves in the field. So when we look into the emergence of anthropology as a discipline, we see it is generally all kind of, we call them as forefathers of anthropology, and one needs to question why they are no kind of mothers of anthropology or sociology. The reason why was these, whether we talk about Ratcliffe Browns, Evans Pritchard and the others, they were all kind of coming in from a certain gender background, and therefore most of these studies were centered on male. And this is evident when we look into the evolutionary model. It would explain the origin of human society by giving significance to the male role of hunting, without which consideration of female gathering was kind of incomplete. So in that point of time, if we look any kind of discussion on the domestic group or on the family could be based on a division, a dichotomous division between the public and the domestic, and public was always assigned to the men. So the men were hunting, men were going to the field, and women were back and they were engaged in reproduction and procreation. This was the evolutionary model, and we'll see how even Frederick Angel kind of uses the evolutionary model to explain the emergence of state and family in his work. So all of these were kind of argued that they had a kind of an androcentric bias towards the study of society. The next we see the descent approach, which I have already done in the previous lectures, was kind of trying to understand kinship relation, and we had a lot of genealogical charts and genealogical map. But what was kind of, we see that there was, it's kind from a male perspective, when the argument is that the reference point or the ego is always a male. So how would we look into a diagram which was kind of conceptualized by Morgan and then Ratcliffe Brown if we kind of change that female into a female ego? So entire understanding would kind of get changed or kind of transformed. Then we also have the alliance theory. The alliance theory, to recall, is a theory which was given to us by Levi-Strauss in his understanding of the debate between the nature and the culture, and he kind of categorized women as belonging to the realm of nature and being kind of something which the society had to be structured, and according to Levi-Strauss, it was the women who had to be given in exchange, and it was the exchange of women which forms the basis of the alliance theory. And to recall, one of the critique of alliance theory is that Levi-Strauss kind of treats women as kind of property or objects that can be transacted. So there was a lot of feminist critique to the way the entire theory is based on kind of assumptions based on the nature culture divide. So because when we look into most of the monographs in terms of the monographs in terms of study of specific society, we see that they were majorly kind of centered around the interest of male ethnographers. So in a way, there was an absence of any documentations on women's involvement in the household, domestic arrangement, trade, exchange, labor, religion and economic life. It was assumed that women were not present there, and we will also kind of see that that Malinowski, who studied the Australian Trobriands, we will be doing a critique or a kind of a reimagination of the same society by a feminist anthropologist, and she brings out the women's perspective in terms of trade and exchange. So, but this comes in much later, in the classical or the time when the discipline of anthropology or kinship study was emerging. There was a kind of a total absence of any kind of documentation of women's life. So what was the problem? Why was there an absence? Was also because there was a certain kind of an understanding which is also there when we look into the gender studies, and so this was a problem which was in gender studies as well as kinship studies, that the relation between men and women were assumed as natural, and the difference, that is the difference between man and a woman, was conceived to be naturally given, and therefore it was kind of biology as destiny. There was no questioning of that natural differences, and therefore that assumption became the base on which anthropologists started studying the economic and political structure. So therefore, we realize when we look into the classical anthropologist work and monographs, we realize that one of the reasons why there was a kind of an absence of any kind of documentation on women's life could also be because there were less women in the field. When I say less women in the field, it implies that women as ethnographers were not there. They were very limited, and that too most of them were coming in from Western context, and therefore the kind of it was the field which belonged to the men, and therefore they kind of became expert of their subject, and they started documenting the society, economic, social relations from their own perspective, and therefore it kind of leads to a vicious circle. It was assumed that the natural difference is given. Women belong to the domestic sphere, women belong to the private sphere. That took away women away from the area of kind of education in terms of academics, and therefore documentation started happening in terms of equally androcentric perspective, or a perspective in which the women's were less represented. So this oversight also stemmed from some kind of there was also a denial, or there was a kind of less interest in terms of asking questions about sexuality, about critiquing the gender relation, because the gender relations or the relation between man and women was assumed to be status quo. That is, nothing was found problematic in it, and therefore the power relation which kind of determines the relation between man and a woman was inhibited. It was kind of never questioned, it was never critically looked at, analyzed at, and that became one of the major area which feminists kind of takes up. They start questioning, or they start looking at gender relation from a power dimension. This kind of, it's not just a simple biological difference, it's a biological difference which has been constructed in a manner in which subordinate status has been assigned to women. So that universal subordination of women became one of the core concepts which was taken up by the feminist writings in 1970s and 80s. So also they kind of understanding, which I already said in the introduction, that we kind of realized that there were some contributions by people who were looking at the women dimensions. Kind of, we cannot look into all of them, but here I will just discuss three of them, which is kind of very significant when we try to traverse through the history of kinship and gender. So we kind of look into Frederick Engel's work, and as I said earlier, the Frederick Engel's work is the origin of family, private property and the state. Frederick Engels kind of was arguing that this entire system of patriarchy is kind of a outgrowth of private ownership of property, and therefore he kind of argues that in the earlier traditional society monogamy was absent. The whole idea was of marriage as an institution, family as an institution was absent. So for Frederick Engel, a traditional society was a matriarchal society and a matrilineal society. But again, his analysis is based on a duality between the domestic sphere and the private sphere, where he says that the women kind of doing the domestic work, reproduction, procreation, and it was the men who were going out for hunting and gathering, and therefore there was kind of a collective life. Property was communally owned. Every member of the society had equal rights in the property. Therefore, it was a matrilineal or kind of a society in which the women status were kind of egalitarian to the men. And then he argues that as history progresses, as kind of society changes, economic relations changes, and people started owning private property, they kind of started looking for women as their forebearers of the inheritors who could take care of the property, and therefore there is a transition from a matrilineal society to a patrilineal and a patriarchal society. So the argument of Friedrich Engels is that the primitive communism, that is communal ownership of property, where there was no private property, human relations was egalitarian. Women's status were kind of more egalitarian than we would find in a private property. And when we say the emergence of private property, it's kind of following a Karl Marx perspective to say that emergence of private property led to the emergence of capitalism. So he is trying to tell us that with the emergence of capitalist society, with the emergence of the class-based society, the class of those who own private means of property and those who do not, led to the emergence of subordinate status of women. So class society is a society which is more gendered, and pre-capitalist society or a pre-class society, the gender relations were much better. This is an argument which has been given by Friedrich Engels. So where do we look for, or why do we look for Engels' theory? We look even for it because he was kind of giving an explanation in the sense that because of change in productive relations, modes of production, women's status became subordinate. Women became dependent wife and became a ward. So a class society is kind of more subordinating the status of women. So that's the place of women in Engels' theory. And the two main factors which he considers as responsible for the growth of private, for the subordinate status, or rather we can say a decline in the status of women, was the emergence of private property, number one, and with emergence of private property, the institution of marriage, monogamous marriage and family kind of was institutionalized. And within family, or we kind of look into from a feminist perspective, family and marriage kind of appropriates the labor of women. So there are many scholars who kind of sees a semblance between capitalism that exploits the labor of the working class. So we find a patriarchal system in which men appropriate the labor of women. So that is from where the context from which such an understanding comes in. And therefore, while being from a Marxian perspective, the economy becomes the central institution. And when we look into sociology, theory of family, we kind of have an understanding that family is an economic unit, family is a unit for sharing resources. So economy became the main principle for defining the institution of family. So Engels concludes that the absence of private property made men's productive work and women's household work of equal significance. So again, we will look into the kind of a critique of Friedrich Engels by Karen Sack. Karen Sack kind of questions the way in which women's status is being kind of symbolically kind of mapped out with the emergence of capitalism, and the idea that a class society, a class-based society is only subordinate is the idea which she kind of rejects. And she argues that even in a pre-class society, the status of women were kind of not equal, and it was in kind of based on certain kind of inequality between the role assigned to men and women. The next important pre-feminist anthropologist, which is very significant when we try to look into the question of gender, is Margaret Mead. Margaret Mead's work, Sex, Temperament and in Three Primitive Society, kind of documents that the biological idea or the biological universal assumption between the natural difference between man and women is incorrect. Margaret Mead, through a study of the society, would argue that it is not biology that determines what men are supposed to do and what women are supposed to do, but rather it is the cultural meaning that society assigns to it, and therefore we will see that she questions the universal understanding of femininity and masculinity based on biological determinism. And she will argue that temperamental differences between sexes are culturally determined than innate biological. So, we see different patterns of male and female behavior. The three society that she studied was Arapace. Child rearing responsibility was divided equally between men and women. This is different from what we perceive in a Western perspective, where we see that the child rearing is a women perspective. The second society was Mundu Gumorra, which he says there was a hostile relation between husband and wife, between brothers and sisters. These pairs is also kind of problematic because it has been placed within the perspective of biological determinism, and the relations are kind of visualized differently. Tachambuli was the third society, where she says that the men were kind of doing more of arts and aesthetics, and women were doing a lot of physical labor. So, the whole idea that feminine, the gender stereotypical notion that feminine don't do physical labor, or they are soft, or they have nimble fingers, kind of questioned as early as this study. So, when we look into these feminists, we know that they kind of laid the base, or they were giving us the foundation for beginning of the feminist anthropology, which kind of formally emerged in the 1970s onward. And we see that they started questioning some of the core assumptions in anthropology. As we have seen through the works of Margaret Mead and others, the first assumptions which was questioned was the universal subordination of women. And it was argued that this idea of subordination of women is culturally specific. The second idea which was questioned was domestic versus public domain. We'll see in the later discussions that the duality or the dichotomies between domestic and the public, the nature versus culture, reproduction versus production, and so many other kind of dichotomies which kind of determine the way in which gender relations were looked in the scholarly work, needs to be questioned and needs to be understood. As long as we go by these binaries of nature and culture, to recall, Levi-Strauss uses the binary of nature versus culture to kind of arrive at the idea of incest taboo, and then kind of giving us that because there is an incest taboo, there should be a rule of exogamy, and exogamy kind of defines the fact that women should be given away in exchange to men. So, the entire theorization of the relation between men and women was based on these dichotomies, which were kind of questioned by feminist anthropologists. Another issue which can also be questioned, and which we have seen in our earlier in our discussions on family, marriage and reproduction, was the way in which the man and women relation was kind of visualized as the base from which relations could be understood, and the whole idea that we cannot consider heterosexuality as the norm for understanding kinship relation. How do we then look into homosexuality, or how do we look into the entire idea that kinship and family could kind of sustain or kind of exist in the absence of any notions of sex and sexuality? Then the fifth idea or the assumption, which was also kind of questioned by the feminist anthropologist, was something which, the dual relation between the father and the son, and the mother and the daughter. And this kind of, even when we go back to the classical theory and we start kind of looking into the ego, and we kind of trace it in terms the matrilineal system, patrilineal system, the differences in descent system in terms of the relation between father and son. So, this relations needs to be questioned, and we bring in relations which are kind of irrespective of the bloodline or alliance line. So, we have already discussed that when we look into kinship studies after say 1980s, 1990s onward, we see the concept of relatedness, the concept of cultural relations becomes very significant in understanding kinship relations. So, when we look into the whole idea of what feminist anthropologists were doing, we kind of arrive at the whole idea that it was the universal subordination of women. And this is a kind of feminist writing by Rosaldo who questions the universal subordination of women, and they kind of help us to understand that when kind of integrating kinship relation, which is also a relation which is based on the man-women relation, it is very important to kind of keep certain things, ideas in mind. One, that the relation can be culturally specific, and number two, the idea of subordination of women is not universal. It is kind of again differs from society to society. So, with this kind of looking at the entire way in women's question was looked at up in anthropology, I come to an end to the lecture on gender and kinship. Thank you.